Good morning. Good Monday morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me on Luminous Pathways today here on 1-2 Radio, changing the way we listen to the world. I am your host, Tracie Kleiner, and as always, it's such a pleasure to connect in with you and get our week started off on a positive and high vibrational energy. My intention each week is always to provide you with insights and energy to keep yourself nurtured, happy, and well taken care of. And I believe so strongly in both empowering and loving yourself. And I'm always hoping to give you tools each week to support you in doing that, whether it's through astrology, spirituality, or coaching, or self-help in general. And we are certainly going to go there today to talk about empowering you to be your best self through hypnotherapy. A big thank you to Gerald Larson and her guest, Nancy Johansson, for sharing your insights and getting us started this morning. Beautiful show, ladies. And before that, C.A. Brooks' wonderful Course in Miracles daily lesson, read by Tamara Childs today. What a way to start off the day. I am sure loving those lessons every day. Just a quick note before I bring my very special guest on the line with me today, please join our chat room over on Facebook. We now have a faster way for you to reach your destination on that Facebook chat page. Simply go to 12radio.com, and on the left-hand side of the page, you will see a chat button listed. And if you click on that, it will bring you directly to the 1-2 Radio page, post by others, and you'll be connected right in with everybody else so that you can easily converse with each other. And I will be over there on the break to read your comments during the show, so please go ahead and converse openly. If you have any questions, you can post them there as well, and we'll do our best to answer them. So a thank you to my amazing producer, Val Camozzi. I so appreciate you. And a big shout out of thanks to Mark Husson for creating All Things 1-2. Be sure to catch his program on Hay House Radio tomorrow morning. And he's also airing a Thursday show here on 1-2 Radio this week at 8 a.m. to talk all about Pisces. So speaking of Pisces, we are now in it. We have an abundance of planets in Pisces. It is a great day to talk about hypnotherapy and the subconscious, as these energies are ruled by Pisces. And the sun moved there at 4:02 a.m. And I will talk in more detail about astrology next week, I promise, but I want to get my very special guest on the line right away, as I have a feeling that you won't be able to get enough of what he has to say. Steve G. Jones, clinical hypnotherapist, is here today live. And I have to say, I've had such positive experiences with hypnotherapy for both myself and my clients over the years. I became certified in hypnotherapy myself, and I use it extensively in my work. And I believe that Steve G. Jones is such a respected expert in the field who has not only helped millions of people with his expertise and outreach, but has created true success in such an authentic and heart-centered way. And today we will learn from Steve some tools and tips for empowering yourself, not only to eliminate non-useful patterns, but how to create success in your own life, and a little bit about the benefits and myths of hypnotherapy. I am big in the belief that we should seek advice from those who have been where we seek to go and have created that which we hope to create for ourselves. I've used Steve's University of NLP programming, and I've utilized his background music extensively in my own products and meditations. And I use his products to personally increase my own effectiveness and get the most out of my own life. So I can really personally vouch for the power of Steve's work. But before I bring him on the line, I want to share with you a bit about who he is. He is a board-certified clinical hypnotherapist and has been practicing hypnotherapy since the 1980s. He is the author of 25 books on topics ranging from hypnosis to the law of attraction and weight loss. And he has created over 9,000 hypnosis audio recordings and 22 different online certification programs, which are sold in over 140 countries. Steve has been featured on Bravo's Millionaire Matchmaker as both a hypnotherapist and a millionaire. And he has been interviewed on CNN, ABC, NBC, and CBS, to name a few. Steve has his bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Florida, a master's in education from Armstrong Atlantic State University, a specialist degree in education, and a doctorate in education. And he has studied psychology at Harvard University. Steve, it is such a pleasure to have you here on Luminous Pathways today. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, many people know who you are, but I really would love to start by giving the listeners a glimpse into your background and how you personally got started on this path of helping others through hypnotherapy and really all the great things that you do. But can you share with them the root of your gift and how you got started? I know you have a great story about that.
I do, and I guess listeners understand that I was, I wasn't doing so well as a kid, academically or emotionally. I mean, my mom died when I was 6. My dad had taken up the hobby of alcoholism, and my stepmom and I didn't get along. And that culminated to me being sent to military school just because my stepmom and my dad really didn't know how to deal with me. So at military school, I just really kind of fell down and out even as a kid. I mean, things weren't looking very good, but I got a book on hypnosis. I found a book by Leslie LeCron called The Complete Guide to Hypnosis. It was anything but complete. It was about maybe 125 pages of a paperback, but I read it, and there was enough to get a kid started on this path in hypnosis. So I started hypnotizing my roommates. We were in military school. I was in Riverside Military Academy in Gainesville, Georgia. That's where all the bad kids got sent from around the world. You get threatened, I'm going to send you to military school, I'm going to send you to boarding school, and kids usually say, whatever. Well, we got sent there. So there we were, and here I was with this book, and suddenly I have a little bit of power. And so I started hypnotizing my roommates, first of all, to do funny things, scratch their nose when I say a certain word and things like that. But then the smart kids came to me wanting to kind of get more bang for their buck in studying, and the athletes came to me wanting to get more out of their exercise, run longer and faster and so forth. And that was as a kid in high school in the early 80s. Now, all these years later, I'm still doing the same thing, helping the athletes and the kids, except helping the athletes and the smart kids, except the athletes are the Dodgers and the smart kids now are NASA.
That's so amazing. It's so empowering. And that's what I love about hypnotherapy is it can really empower you to bring forth your greatest gifts that you have within yourself. And it sounds like you discovered that at such an early age. Did your own journey involve continuing clearing certain things to reach the levels of success that you've had?
Oh, it did. I mean, I've gone through my struggles and my clearing and so forth. I have a fair amount of education now, but it actually took me 9 years to get my bachelor's degree in psychology at the University of Florida. I got married and got divorced, and life happens. So I've had to go through a lot of personal challenges, and hypnotherapy has always been there for me. I was even a preacher for the Church of Christ for 5 years, from 90 to 95, and so I had to change it a little bit then. Certain things weren't acceptable in the church. So hypnotherapy has kind of been my constant friend, companion, helper there the whole time to see me through some tough times, and it's also been there for me to help other people with.
Definitely. I want to first start off by clearing up any fears or misconceptions around hypnotherapy itself, what it can do, what it doesn't do. I just know that when I became certified in hypnotherapy, I was surprised to learn that there's many that are fearful of being hypnotized, or they associate hypnotherapy with other things. What insight can you shed on this, Steve?
Well, I can understand that. I mean, if I go to the dentist's office, I keep one eye on the dentist, even when I'm, sedated a little bit, because I'm thinking, well, I don't necessarily know that this person knows how to do this procedure the right way. And so I can relate to that fear. And in hypnotherapy, it's even escalated because of the lack, at least in the United States, the lack of federal regulation concerning hypnotherapy. What is a hypnotherapist, or as some states call them, a hypnotist? So the regulation is not really there. So some of the concerns are actually real. I mean, with a dentist, that they have passed a government designated test that tests their ability to do what they they say they're going to do. And if they don't pass it, they're not allowed to do it legally. In hypnotherapy, we don't have that. So we're left to organizations such as mine, the American Alliance of Hypnotists, to self-regulate the industry. And so we do a really good job of that, but I can still understand some consumer skepticism. But aside from that, a lot of people just think, misconceptions. They think maybe they'll go into a coma in hypnosis, which isn't true. If you fell asleep, you would wake up at the end of what would be a normal nap. They think the hypnotherapist is going to be able to make them do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. And there's a great movie by Woody Allen. We were talking Zodiacs earlier. He's a Sagittarius like myself. And Woody Allen has a great movie called The Curse of the something scorpion. Anyway, in that movie, Woody Allen is put under hypnosis by somebody who calls him and activates him and makes him rob banks and do illegal things. So people see this, they laugh. Curse of the Jade Scorpion is the name of the movie. So people see this in Hollywood and they laugh at it, but at the same time they think, can hypnosis really make people do things against their will? So all of these thoughts are in a person's head when they're going to a hypnotist. So the way to deal with them, number one, concerning credentials, just look someone up online. Just see what their reputation is online. That's the best way to check someone out. Concerning going into a coma, you will not. Concerning being under the spell or the power of a hypnotist, you will not. You will do your own things in your own way. You will not do anything that violates what you believe in. So that sort of sums up the concerns and how to deal with them.
That makes so much sense, because on the flip side, that does directly relate to the importance of finding a hypnotherapist that you can trust. And since the industry is not regulated, and yet I do hope to talk to you more about that in the second half of the show as well, Steve, because I know education is such a passion for you too. But there can be unscrupulous professionals out there, just like in any industry. So you always want to make sure that who you're dealing with has your best interests at heart.
Yes, absolutely. And again, the best way to do it is just get on Google. If you hire a painter, you can get 3 references. If you hire a carpenter, you can get 3 references, and you just call the references. If you hire a hypnotherapist, you're not going to get 3 references because those references are protected by HIPAA, which is a federal law protecting client or patient privacy. So it's not as if they can say, call Tom, Jim, and Sally and see what they thought. They're not allowed to do that legally. So you have to look online to check them out.
Okay, that makes sense. And you can have hypnotherapy performed in person with somebody, or you can purchase MP3 recordings online, which is what I typically do. So is there a difference, in your opinion, Steve, on the power of hypnotherapy? Does it matter if you're in person or having this purchased online?
Well, I think it's better in person, but then again, it's more expensive in person, and you have to schedule time to go there. You have to tell someone all your deep secrets, things like that. Now, I'm not trying to paint a negative picture of going to see a hypnotherapist, because I think it's the best way to go, but it has got some drawbacks. The good side is you get a recording. If they make a recording of the session, that's tailored to you. It's about your challenges, as opposed to a pre-recorded session, which has nothing to do with you, except the session has the highlights of what someone would be going through if they were stopping smoking or stopping binge eating or overcoming fear of flying, etc. So you've got to weigh the two. I personally prefer, because I use hypnotherapy, of course, myself, and I use the products of other hypnotherapists. I prefer to just use a download because it's easier. I don't have to schedule anything. I don't have to sit in an office for an hour with someone, telling everything that's going on. It's done in the privacy of my own home. Nobody has to know about it except me. And in Japan, this is a huge thing. In Japan, people go in to see hypnotherapists. I have a friend who practices in Tokyo. She says they come in through the back door or they come late at night, because it's considered dishonorable for a man to seek the services of a therapist. Wow. It's considered to be, as if they don't have the power that they need to handle things in a macho way. So they're showing weakness and they lose face, as it were. So if these things are a concern on any level to anyone, then you can bypass all of that just by ordering something online.
That makes sense. I'm the same way. And then on that note, how important is the voice vibration between the hypnotherapist and the client? I know that for me personally, I could record my own, but I'm not able to listen to my own voice and really go there. So I buy yours. But it took me a long time to find you and your voice, that energetic vibration that I could resonate with. So is there anything to that, or am I just very picky?
You're a Virgo, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Enough said, right?
Yeah. I'm just kidding. But, yeah, I think that, when I first heard my voice, I was about 10 years old, and my dad I was probably 5 years old, actually. This was before my mom passed away. And my dad bought me a voice recorder. It was black recorders with a cord and a microphone, cassette tapes. I recorded my voice. I played it back, and I said, "Who's that?" It didn't even sound like me. We usually don't even sound like ourselves when we first hear ourselves, because we're hearing ourselves from a different point of view than outsiders do. And we get to hear that outsider point of view outside of our heads, and it sounds different. So for some people, they don't like their own voice because it doesn't even sound like them. But the thing to keep in mind is that I don't believe there's any magic in the frequencies of a person's voice and so forth. What I believe is that some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla, some people like strawberry. So you find something that you like and you go with it. I'm honored to hear you say that you like my voice. I've trained my voice hypnotically for a long time to be what I consider to be the smoothest delivery when I speak hypnotically. I speak like this, and even more slowly than that. And I've trained that to be something that I consider, that I personally feel is relaxing. Because when I hear some hypnotherapy recordings, they're kind of like this. They're all over the place, and it's a little, instead of relaxing me, it puts me, on high alert. So I think that, but some people may like that. They may like the fluctuation. So really, I believe it just boils down to finding something that you like.
Yeah, that makes sense. And on that note, I do use your background tracks for the recordings that I create. And that's because they're designed to take your brainwaves into different states. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think the background music can be important too when you're looking for a hypnosis MP3.
Sure. We have separate background tracks that we have available for people who want to make their own recordings. And those are kind of like karaoke versions. They don't have my voice at all. Because a lot of people for many years were saying, clients would come into the office, I'd make them a recording with a background music behind it and, my voice over it. They'd say, that was really great, but can you make me one of those without your voice on it? And so I took a little offense, and I logged it in the back of my mind. And then finally we did. We produced, I had one of my sound engineers produce from scratch background sounds that people could use to make their own recordings, to sell them, or to just use them for themselves. So now we've got people marketing things on Amazon and eBay and so forth that they've produced using my background tracks as the underpinning for it and their voice as the main part. But we also have music that we use for our hypnosis recordings, of which we've got about 9,000 of them now. And we purchase the rights on these. We purchase the rights to use them. So someone would not be legally able to use the background that I use on my recordings. They can use the backgrounds that we've specifically created for people to use as backgrounds. But the backgrounds I use on my recordings, we handpick. We have a guy in Florida who produces a lot of those for us. We also get some of them as stock recordings online at a website we like to use. It takes a long time, though, for myself, and I do this with my assistant. We both go through and she listens to hundreds at first, then she gets it down to 10, and then we listen to those over and over, and we get it down to maybe 5 new ones that we're going to use. So those are designed, and to get into the details of those, we have binaural tones, isochronic tones, we have alpha tracks, we have delta tracks, and to speak a little bit about those, binaural tones, which are used in a lot of the tracks that I have that I provide for hypnotherapists to use for themselves and for the recordings that I use myself with my voice on them. Binaural tones create a tone that isn't really there. It's the perception of a tone in the center of your head, which is the difference of the frequency of the left and the right channel. So in other words, you have one frequency in your right ear, one frequency in your left ear. If you just subtract those frequencies, you get the binaural frequency, which is a phantom frequency, which appears to be heard in the center of your head and is not really there. And you may think, well, that's nice, sounds like hocus pocus and a neat stage trick, but is it any good? And as it turns out, yes, it has been demonstrated to show effectiveness in more easily delivering the message that's put with it. So by itself, it won't do much, but with words, it becomes more effective. And then we also have the alpha tones and the delta and theta tones. Those are just different levels of relaxation. Alpha being the lightest stage of hypnosis, theta being deeper, and delta being the deepest. So you can pick and choose which level you'd like to go to. And the way these work is through brain entrainment. Your brain hears something that's at a certain frequency, and your brain says, I'm going to lock onto that. And so your brain locks onto that, and it starts emulating that frequency. So your brain slows down to the level at which that frequency is playing. That has tremendous helpful effect when it comes to hypnosis, because we need someone's brain to be slowed down, because the definition of hypnosis is a slower brain frequency. And in that slower brain frequency region, the messages are delivered more efficiently.
That makes sense. I intuitively felt like that could really help, especially if you're a person who's very mentally active, like myself. I guess I felt that.
Is he analyzing things? Yes.
Yeah.
I think absolutely.
That we've got about 2 minutes before we go to a commercial break, but I'll squeeze one more question in. What could one expect from a hypnotherapy session? Someone who's never had hypnotherapy before, in a nutshell, can you give a snapshot into the process?
Sure. If you go into the office of a professional hypnotherapist anywhere in the world, you should expect pretty much the same thing, with some slight differences, but pretty much it'll be the same thing. It should be like going into a doctor's office, except or a therapist's office, I would say, would be a better comparison, because rather than having a lot of clients in the waiting room, you probably have maybe one, if that, because the sessions are so long. I work with someone the first time for 2 hours, and follow-ups are 1 hour. So the next patient is not going to be in the waiting room waiting 2 hours. So you should expect a waiting room if there's only one hypnotherapist there with minimal, if any, patients in the waiting room. You should expect the hypnotherapist to be dressed professionally and to greet you professionally and to talk with you for a fair amount of time to find out what's going on with you. My first session, as I said, is 2 hours. I spend an hour talking with the person and an hour with the hypnosis session. But usually you'll get 1 hour, and you'll spend a few minutes talking with them and maybe about 45 minutes with the hypnosis session. You should expect in an office setting to receive hopefully a recording of the session so that you can listen to it, because one session is great, but you really want to drive that message home, so you want to listen to that recording every night or every day between sessions, between the first and the second session, so in the second and third and so forth. So you should expect the session itself to last up to an hour. You should expect at the end the hypnotherapist to hopefully give you a recording and to schedule the next session. You should expect to work with a hypnotherapist for between 1 and 6 sessions would be normal. Anything beyond that, and it becomes like a counseling session. When hypnosis works, it usually works within a very short period of time to get the messages across your subconscious mind. So those are the things you should expect.
That sounds great. I think that repetition is super important. So we'll pick up with more of this when we come back from our commercial break. Please stay with us for the second half of the show here on Luminous Pathways on 1-2 Radio, changing the way we illuminate the world. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. here with you live today with my very special guest, Steve G. Jones, clinical hypnotherapist. And before the break, we were discussing how Steve has fallen into this wonderful path of helping others with hypnotherapy. We're going to continue that discussion now, along with some other great things to talk about to empower you and give you some ideas on how to empower yourself. So before we get back to our conversation, I have just a few announcements. I did post in the chat room Steve's website. He also just informed me on the break that he is a fan of astrology. He has a website called CoachZodiac.com, and I'm definitely going to look into that on the break. But he tells me he's a Sagittarius, and he's got Gemini rising. The moon's in Gemini today, so this is really wonderful. But I just want to let you know that today's show is going to air again as an encore presentation on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So if you missed any of our conversation, or if you think that you might know of somebody who would benefit from listening to our conversation, not only will I archive the show on 12radio.com as well as traciekleiner.com, but it will air again here on the radio waves on 12 Radio on Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific time. So we have this full moon coming up soon. These lunar cycles sure go fast, and I invite you to join me on 12academy.com. I have some sessions listed there, as well as a range of classes. And I'd like to bring Steve G. Jones back on the line with me. Steve, do you want to let people know where they can find you and your work if they're not on the Facebook?
Sure. What was that about Facebook?
If they're not on the Facebook page.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, my website is just my name, stevegjones.com.
Perfect.
Best way to find me. We actually got a free download for people there if they want it at stevegjones.com.
That sounds really good. So you do have over 9,000 recordings. You can find anything to work on yourself with hypnotherapy. One question I have for you, Steve, is a lot of times people want to make change and they have a ton of things they want to work on. How would you suggest they start that process? Should they do one recording at a time, or can they do more than one at a time?
Well, I always suggest one at a time for 3 weeks, but if they want to work on a few things that are related, then they could just alter the recordings for 3 weeks. In other words, say someone wants to work on weight loss, but they also get a confidence recording and a motivation recording. I would say confidence and motivation are generic enough that they could pretty much go with anything. So we could put all of those together. And so now you've got 3 recordings that you're going to listen to in 3 weeks. The best way to do that is just one a night and then rinse and repeat. So recording A on night 1, recording B on night 2, recording C on night 3, and then start over. And just do that for 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious, but what do you find to be the main things that people utilize hypnotherapy for in your experience?
Well, that's more of a marketing question when it comes to the website. In my personal experience working with people, both at my previous office in Beverly Hills and now where I am in Savannah, Georgia, it's kind of changed because of the differences. Obviously, there's a huge difference in what people are into in Beverly Hills versus what they're into in Georgia. In Beverly Hills, the main thing was actors, producers, and screenwriters coming to me wanting to get back in there and make some money, and mostly actors needing to get their motivation back and their belief in themselves back between jobs. In Savannah, Georgia, it's quite a bit different. Smoking and weight loss are the two biggest things. But if I had an office on Wall Street, then it'd probably be all about finance. It just really depends on the region. But I would say overall, and this is just an opinion, overall, I would say that people are interested in just feeling better about themselves, making more money, and finding love. And they do the finding love part through a variety of ways, getting more confident, losing weight, getting motivated to exercise. But really that's what it's all about for them, in my opinion, getting themselves to a point at which they feel good enough to attract the person that they want.
That makes a lot of sense, to do your inner work versus, sometimes when we're talking about manifesting and the law of attraction, we can send out that signal that we want a good partner, we want a good relationship, but really it's about maybe shifting things inside a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And the funny thing is, when people realize that it has absolutely nothing to do with their outward appearance at all, it's just how they carry themselves and how much they believe in themselves.
Mm-hmm. So basically, hypnotherapy can fix things like habits, from overeating or smoking to deeper level things like creating more intimacy, or even forgiveness work, or overcoming maybe deeply rooted shame or lack of confidence. And I know that for myself locally, I've started helping women recover their feminine essence through a combo of life coaching and hypnotherapy, and that's been very effective. Do you find that in your work too, that it can really be a great healing modality, Steve?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel that people get out of it what they put into it, and usually if they come to me with a focus such as what you mentioned, then they're already on their way there. Sometimes people just show up and they don't really know what's going on with them. They just want to feel better. But if people have a goal in mind, then absolutely can help with that.
That's so true. And they know. I think another obstacle that people encounter is a resistance to seeking help in the first place. And some really view that as a sign of weakness or a failure somehow. And I want to stress to everyone that self-help modalities like hypnotherapy are wonderful and empowering. And Steve works with celebrities who many would feel have hit a pinnacle of success. So why would they be seeking guidance? But there's no shame. In fact, it's just, I think, what successful people do.
Oh, absolutely. And I think people, now it's protected by HIPAA, which is the federal law governing privacy. But I think people would be shocked if I named some of the names of some of the celebrities who I've worked with, who have contacted me, who I'm not allowed to talk about because they haven't given me permission to do so. People who you would think are on top of the world, on top of their game all the time, but they're really not. They're people who have insecurities, who do, fall down sometimes. And there are also people who realize that hypnosis is a powerful part of their ongoing success. Not hypnosis per se, but just the ability to, for them to convince themselves that they're wonderful and amazing and powerful and worthy and so forth. Sort of like taking vitamins. They look at it that way. Yeah. Something that's part of their regimen that helps in their success.
It's always a journey, I think, even if it's striving for more openness and accepting and allowing of the good that's coming in. You hit a level of success, or you reach a plateau you never thought you would, and then you can hit new blocks for welcoming that in. Would you say?
Oh, absolutely. Like the hip hop song "Mo Money, Mo Problems." People think that they'll get to a certain level of success and there won't be any more. I would call them challenges. There won't be any more challenges, but the good thing about life is the challenging thing about life, which is that there are always going to be new challenges. At the new level, there will always be new challenges. I remember when I first started making a little money in hypnotherapy, I thought, well, if I make a little bit more money, then all of my challenges go away financially, and they don't. They just get bigger. So you never really get over what we're here to do, which is learn and face challenges. So that's the good news and the challenging news.
Yeah, I think that I'm big on self-empowerment. I really like to guide people to their own answers. And when we get busy or we get more success and our schedules get crazy, I think you can really use hypnotherapy to go back within and create an opening to access your own inner guidance system again and just stay in touch with yourself.
I agree. Getting that compass, getting access to that inner compass is always important.
Yeah, definitely. One question, I know that I use meditation extensively with myself and my clients too, but there is a difference. People often confuse meditation and hypnotherapy as being one and the same. They're both powerful, but they work very differently. So what is your take on how those two things are different, Steve?
Well, meditation is comparing meditation and hypnosis, and I just thought of this, is kind of, I'll see how far the analogy actually goes, is kind of like comparing yoga and exercise, because they're both very similar, yet they're distinct. And meditation is distinct in the way that yoga is distinct from exercise, in that it has a lot of esoteric or Eastern formalities built into it, usually to some degree or another, that sometimes have been watered down or changed, but usually it's got some sort of Eastern connotation, each aspect of it. And also a meditation, you have, as opposed to hypnosis, you don't necessarily have a target outcome. Sometimes in meditation, in fact, many times in meditation, it's perfectly acceptable to just be, to just relax, to see the lake as being stormy and then let it calm down and just be one with the lake, for example. Mm-hmm. With hypnosis, it's not really like that, because you usually have a client coming to your office, paying money, expecting an outcome, or purchasing a recording, expecting an outcome. So if their outcome that they want is, oneness with the lake and quietness, then that's great. But usually it's something else. It's something very specific. They want to lose X amount of pounds. They want to overcome fear of flying because they've got to go to their 10-year high school reunion. They want to get better at exercise because they want to run a marathon, things like that. So I think that encapsulates the gist of the differences.
Oh, yeah. Everyone wants to make these changes. When you have a client that wants something specific, I think you're right, too. Awareness is at least half the battle. So if they know what they want to work on, I think that utilizing the conscious mind, like helping them with actions combined with hypnotherapy, which works on the subconscious mind, is really the way to go. Because if you don't have that subconscious part, that's, I think, when things don't work, or they don't stick, I should say.
Right. If you don't have your subconscious mind on board, then it kind of becomes a waste of time, because you can convince yourself all you want consciously that you're going to do something, but if you have this idea in the back of your mind that you're not worthy of it, that it's not right for you, that it's somehow going to be painful for you to achieve that goal, then your subconscious mind will find ways to sabotage your efforts. And it's going to seem like it's happening to you from the outside world, but it's actually happening from within. You're causing it. You're creating these obstacles. And so that's what happens when you don't have your subconscious mind on board with the program.
Yes, I love that. So I want to shift gears a little bit, Steve, because at some point in your career, creating all these wonderful MP3 recordings and helping as many as you have, you made a leap into another passion of yours, which is education. Can you speak to the listeners a bit about your goals for regulating hypnotherapy and why that's important to you?
Sure. And I guess this happened a few years ago when I first moved to Savannah. I was in a chat room and I was talking with one of my friends who has a PhD in psychology, and it was a discussion board online about hypnotherapy. And this whole discussion started that I got involved in. And at the end of the discussion, I just said, you know what? I'm going to go get a doctorate in education, and I'll be back. Well, it's 8 years later, and I'm back. And the reason I did it was because I felt that we needed some sort of standardization of credentialing on a federal level. State would be great, and we've got a little bit of that, but it kind of becomes like the marijuana laws. You got 2 states now making it legal, and the federal government says it's not legal, and what a weird big mess. So sometimes when you just have individual states doing things because they're reacting to the what's popular in the states and what the voters want, then it becomes a disconnect between the state and federal government. So what I feel should be done is on a federal level, there should be regulation of hypnotherapy certification. What is a hypnotherapist? We need the federal government to say that. How many hours have they studied? How many continuing educational units do they need per year? What do they know? What can a person, as we talked about previously, what can a person expect when they walk into the office of a hypnotherapist? What are the protocols? If you go to a medical doctor and they see something, they're going to start following a protocol for that. They see something and they test for that. They find something, they test for something else. These are all based on protocols. This is what keeps a doctor out of legal trouble and ensures that the patient is getting where they need to be and getting the standard of care they need. If a doctor is called on the stand and the attorney says, "Why did you do that?" All the doctor has to say is because that is the protocol. In hypnotherapy, we don't have that. The hypnotherapist on the stand, "Why'd you do that?" "Well, because in my training program, they said to do it," or "because I thought it was good," or "because that's the way we've always done it." Well, that is actually good enough for now. But overall, it's really not good enough, in my opinion. We should have the same level of credentialing as hypnotherapists as medical doctors do. Now, the knowledge base is not as robust as in medicine. I know that. But essentially, it should be this of following protocols and letting the consumer know what to expect. So you may wonder, well, how do we make all this happen? I believe the way it happens is people like myself who are well educated, and that's not to say I'm better than anyone. I just do happen to have a doctorate in education. So people like myself who do have the mainstream credentials should begin taking action in terms of lobbying Congress, for example, for the standardization of credentials for the benefit of the end user, the customers, the patients who will benefit.
Absolutely, I agree. I'm even of the belief that having some kind of regulation and oversight in other areas of helping industries is beneficial, like energy healing, life coaching, maybe even astrology, could use some regulation because these are such powerful tools. And when people are seeking guidance, they can sometimes be in a position of vulnerability. And I'm sure many of us have experienced, at least I know I have, maybe not such a great session, or you received guidance that really wasn't in your best interest from someone that you were entrusting yourself with.
Absolutely, that can happen, and there's currently no recourse for a client. There's so people in other healing modalities, I would encourage them to get active too, and just let's standardize this thing. Mm-hmm. Now, I should point out there's a lot of resistance to this because a lot of people who are from the old school and they've just been they've been practicing hypnotherapy for a long time, and myself included. I mean, since the early '80s, I've been involved in it. But some people stand on the idea of, we don't need no government telling us what to do. That's how I'd encapsulate their battle cry. They don't want the government stepping in to tell them how to do a job that they feel they already know how to do. The challenge with that, what they're really not seeing, in my opinion, is number one, if there's standardization, then they're going to get more clients than ever before because so many people are afraid to go to hypnotherapists because of this lack of regulation. Number two, it's going to make it a lot easier to teach it and a lot easier for schools to allow credit for other. Say a student comes to the American Alliance of Hypnotists, which is the organization I run. We have a difficult time honoring credits from another school because we don't know what they taught. With standardization of credentialing, we will know what they taught, and we will be able to award the proper credit for what they've already taken. So there will be a lot of things that are actually beneficial, but one thing we'll have to give up is, it being like the Wild West where there's no regulation.
What just popped into my mind when you say this, too, is I'm just such a big believer in balance and moderation. Eastern wisdom meets Western wisdom and all that. And I can't help but think that if certain aspects of self-help were more regulated, like hypnotherapy, we might even be able to better integrate those worlds with hospitals and clinics and hospice care centers to bring a more holistic approach to health and healing. Do you think that could happen with more regulation?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and it will not happen without regulation because the liability is way too high. I mean, if someone brings in a hypnotherapist and pays them with, funds from the hospital, and the hypnotherapist does something wacky, which is what a lot of these hospitals think will happen. Now, let's establish that I don't believe hypnotherapists do wacky things. I believe they do professional things. However, if they do something that's considered by the patient to be out of the ordinary or absurd or questionable, and the patient then files a lawsuit against the hospital has really no recourse because there's no standard of care that's expected. They cannot point to something and say, well, what are you talking about? This hypnotherapist followed the protocol. There is no protocol. So once we have that in place, then these healthcare facilities will readily embrace it. They'll want to make it part of insurance. They'll want to charge insurance for the services of hypnotherapists. Right now, it is very difficult to do that, to charge insurance for the services of a hypnotherapist because of this lack of standardization. It's too great of a risk. It's too unknown. There's so many negative factors concerning it that the established healthcare system just does not want to mess with it. So with the standardization, we'll be good to go. We'll be all set, just like a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or a medical doctor could bill insurance. A hypnotherapist will be able to as well, and will be able to work within the healthcare system.
That can only bring more credibility to the field and more knowledge, too, because then would that not require more continuing education, furthering your knowledge, staying abreast of trends and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. And knowledge is a huge thing. I mean, we've got, the knowledge base in hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming, a lot of it is opinion-based. People who came up with concepts and opinions, and they put them in there. Well, that's not acceptable in the medical world. If you think that a drug is going to help hypothyroidism, then the FDA is going to check it out. They're going to find out if it actually does through clinical trials. They're also going to disclose all of the risks involved. So what we would have then is a weeding out of a lot of the information in hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming, which is somewhat similar to hypnotherapy. We would have a weeding out of all of the information that doesn't stand up to academic testing, to rigorous testing. We would find out which techniques actually work. We would have research behind it, and we would get rid of the ones that don't work because they would be considered to be too potentially dangerous and a potential lawsuit, et cetera, because there's nothing to stand behind them. So we would completely clean house, and we would only have the techniques that are demonstrated to work, and we would have protocols. And yes, all of this would result in just the world looking at hypnotherapy in a better way, in a more professional way.
Oh, definitely. And I think, too, that if there's more regulation in regards to this, then people might feel a little bit safer with these modalities, with hypnotherapy. And it would be great to see this extend into other fields as well. But I think it would bring down the fear level because people will have a better sense of what to expect. They know that there's some oversight. And right now, as it stands, maybe that contributes to some of the fearful things that I hear out there about even wanting to attempt it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people go to a hypnotherapist, and the other person says, "What are you talking about? Why would you go to a hypnotherapist?" Like in the movie Office Space, where the guy goes to a hypnotherapist, an occupational hypnotherapist, and his buddies. First thing at lunch, he mentions it, and his buddies say, "Occupational hypnotherapist? What are you, crazy?" And so that's because it sounds like a made-up term, occupational hypnotherapist, and in fact, for the most part, it is. But with credentialing, it wouldn't be that. It would be regulated, and there would be certain things you call yourself, certain things you don't call yourself. If you're an occupational hypnotherapist, then you would have studied some coursework specifically about occupational hypnotherapy as relates to the workplace. Yeah. So it would definitely help consumers feel at ease.
Well, thank you so much for shedding light on that. I know that, there's many in my personal circle of healers and helpers that have great resistance to the idea of regulation. So I think that this is really eye-opening into all the ways that it could help so much more than it could hurt. And surprisingly, we only have about 30 seconds left. So I just want to thank you so much for having you on the show, Steve. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for making this possible.
You bet. So everybody, I put Steve's links up on the 12 Radio Facebook page. Please stay tuned for Susan Dentino live next, and have a wonderful Monday.